Amen. Well, it's good to be back after an excellent men's conference.
Yes.
If you have not been there, you need to go.
Yes.
It's always an amazing time of fellowship, friendship, and there's always some amazing preaching. And this morning we're going to be speaking about legends of old. But before we kind of get into it, I want to play a little bit of a game. We're going to have a quiz on the 7 ancient wonders of the world. And so I'm going to throw up some pictures here. We're going to go through it, but we'll just take a moment and think right now. Can you think of 7 ancient wonders of the world? We have our first ancient world wonder. That's the pyramids in Egypt. That's number 1. How many of you knew that the pyramids were one of the ancient ones? Okay, good. All right, next one. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. The next one. The statue of Zeus at Olympia.
Yeah.
Okay, we're fading. We're fading. The next one, Temple of Artemis. The Mausoleum at Halicarnassus.
No.
Colossus of Rhodes.
Yeah.
And finally, number 7, the Lighthouse of Alexandria.
Yeah.
So how many knew all 7? That's what I expected. It's tough. It's a pretty hard quiz because these things are honestly very old. They're not within our lifetime, and all of them except for one no longer exist today. But here's the thing: whenever those buildings existed, they were the talk of the world.
Right.
They were very well known. They were incredible construction projects that usually lasted many years at great expense, and the people of the time, they must have thought, surely this building, this great achievement that we have made and that we have accomplished will be remembered forever. This is going to go down in history. This is going to be remembered by our children, and it will be remembered by our grandchildren. Surely people from all around the world will come to see this great building that we have made thousands of years from now. And sure, that was probably the case for at least a little bit of time, but yet here we are today. We had no clue probably what half of those buildings were. We don't know, and honestly, if we're going to be brutally honest here this morning, we don't really care. They're old buildings that don't exist. I can't go see it on vacation. Whatever. They're old buildings. They're old things. And sure, it might be nice to imagine yourself at this site and taking in the view and maybe taking in a picture and posing in front, maybe Leaning Tower of Pisa at this one or something. It's nice to visualize, but overall, we don't really care. So, okay, let's move on to more modern things, you might say. Let's deal with something maybe I might care about. Okay, so let's do the 7 wonders of the modern world. Let's see if you know all 7 wonders of the modern world. We have the Great Wall of China.
Yeah.
We have the Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
We have Petra in Jordan.
Yeah.
The Colosseum in Rome. Christ the Redeemer statue in Rio de Janeiro. We have Chichen Itza in Mexico, and we have Machu Picchu in Peru. So how did we do? How did we do there? We did better, but still not great. You probably knew all of those places, but it's kind of hard to pull up that they're the wonders of the modern world, right? You probably recognize them, but weren't just able to to pull it up. And all of those things, they exist right now. You can go and visit those ones on vacation. But still, do you care? Do you care? No, not really. Not really. These are legendary things. These are things that are written down in our textbooks that we teach our children about, and these are amazing things that are going on, but we don't really care. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and be like, wow, Machu Picchu. No, you're going to wake up tomorrow, you're going to be like, let's go to work. And that's it. All of these things, they go down in the history books, and they're written by historians. They are voted on by the public, agreed upon by the collective people to be things of significance. It's something that we should remember, and we do know about it a little bit here and there, and we've deemed it as a society something worth remembering and teaching our kids about, but overall, this is mostly probably the first time you've heard of some of these things. They're legendary, but we don't know them. We don't know them at all. I personally am a pretty big fan of college sports. And I got into it when I was about 15, and it's been interesting over the years to watch coaches maintain and continue to garner a legendary status. In college basketball, I cheer for the Syracuse team, and their coach, Jim Boeheim, has been coaching since 1969.
Wow.
Who's born after 1969 today? He has been coaching at Syracuse University your entire life. That is incredible.
Right.
Because this is an extremely competitive field. People get fired all the time, and for your whole life, he has been successful,
Right.
winning championships. He's done such a good coaching job. He's never been fired.
Yeah.
He is a legend of the school. For 52 years, he has been coaching basketball at Syracuse University, and it was so cool for me to watch him coach his son over the past couple of years. He got to coach his son in college basketball. What a moment that was. He is, however, not the only athletics coach that has risen to legendary status in our lifetime. In fact, he's so legendary, they put his name on the court. They cemented his legendary status at the school. But he's not the only one who's gone and done this in college sports. I'm really into college football as well, and there's a coach called Nick Saban. Nick Saban is considered to be the greatest football coach in college history. And he is alive in our time. He started as a head coach at Toledo, and then he moved on to Michigan. After Michigan, he moved on to my favorite team, the LSU Tigers. And he coached the Bayou Tigers. In his 4th year there at LSU, he won the national championship. And due to this achievement, and in recognition of the immense difficulty that it takes to win a national championship, Nick Saban was voted into the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. And if you don't know college sports, which you probably don't, and I understand that, you're saying, okay, he won a championship, big deal. No, you're competing against hundreds of other schools all across the country.
Yeah.
And a lot of those schools are putting big money into their athletics department.
Yes.
Here's the thing about college sports. If you lose just one game in your whole season, you're pretty much done.
Yeah.
You do not stand a chance if you lose essentially one game in your whole season to even play in the finals. That's how hard it is.
Yeah.
Okay, like, imagine that for a moment, right? You're playing for an amazing team, and you're going to an amazing school, and you're having a great season, and then in your conference is another really amazing team, and you just so happen to just lose that one game because you slipped up and you didn't make that one catch, and now your dream is over.
Yeah.
Your season is over because you lost one game. It is incredibly difficult to win the national championship, and he did it in his 4th year with LSU. An incredible feat. But then, unfortunately for me, Nick decided he wasn't coaching at LSU anymore. And he moved on to our bitter rivals, the Alabama Crimson Tide. And it was there in Alabama that Nick Saban, he became a legend of college football. He started coaching in Alabama in 2007, and he has coached there ever since. And out of his 14 seasons there, he has won the national championship 6 times. He has achieved titles in 11 of his 14 seasons. This is incredible.
Yeah.
His record with Alabama over the years is 165 wins and 23 losses. since 2007. 2007 is when the first iPhone came out. 2007 is when the modern ancient wonder, or the modern Seven Wonders of the World Foundation was created. 2007 is when we were all playing Wii Sports on the Nintendo Wii. 2007 is when Stephen Harper and George Bush were the leaders of North America. Since 2007, he's lost 23 times. This is amazing. He is a modern coaching legend. He is a living legend in the Alabama football program, and yet, how many people have ever heard of him? Nobody's ever heard of this guy. He's created such a legendary status at the Alabama football program that Alabama, they created a slogan in 2016. They created a slogan, and this is what they made for their school.
Listen. That's a sound reserved for a select few. Because life doesn't just give out Pulitzers or championships. Greatness takes work, grit, perseverance. And this is only the beginning. The University of Alabama, where legends are made.
Where legends are made. This is what they created as their school motto, where legends are made, where the best of the best are shaped and formed, where those who are shaping the present and the future are cultivated and created and refined and reformed, those whose stories are going to go down in the history books. That's what this school is producing. That is what they are claiming to make the legends. The people that get written down in history and the record books. The people that you want to tell your kids about. This is where legends are made. And yet today, we had one person put up his hand who said he knew about Nick Saban.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with legends. That's the problem with them. They're mostly known only during their lifetime. If they're lucky, they'll be known maybe for several more hundred years. And if they're incredibly lucky, maybe 1,000. But by that time, no one living cares about them.
Right.
They're just storybook characters at that point. Right? Well, who's that? Napoleon Bonaparte. Okay, you knew that one. How about this? Who's that? Alexander the Great. Come on. Who's that? Augustus. We don't know these guys. We don't. Now, to be fair, I didn't give you a whole lot to go off. But here's your proof. These guys were heroes of their time, legends of their time, but yet we can't even recognize them. Who cares? They're from the past. They don't affect me today. They're dead dudes who have fallen apart statues to represent all that they have accomplished throughout their life.
Right.
And we don't care. They're legends of old. They don't matter anymore.
Right.
In 2011, the University of Alabama, they unveiled a life-size bronze statue of Coach Nick Saban, immortalizing him on the campus grounds at the football stadium, or at least that's what they thought they were doing. They thought they were immortalizing him, but let's be honest, if nobody cares today, who's going to care in 300 years? Are you going to go home and tell your kids about Nick Saban? Are you going to tell your grandchildren about Nick Saban? Probably not. You don't really care. We can't recognize some of the greatest people in the world. Why would we recognize a living coaching legend right now?
Yeah.
Some guy from the past. What on earth does he have to do with me? And I kind of feel bad saying this. I really do, but I feel bad for all the soldiers who fought in World War I and World War II. Because every Remembrance Day, we come and we say we will never forget.
Yeah.
And I hope we don't. I hope we don't forget them. And I hope we don't forget the sacrifice that they made. And I hope we don't forget what their families had to go through as they sent the young men overseas to fight. I hope we don't forget.
Right.
I hope we don't forget the sacrifice that they made and the freedom that we have because of them. But I can't name you the soldiers that fought. I don't know their names. I like to learn about them in history, and I try and I do my best to remember them, but it's hard because I don't know them. My great-grandfather was over there, but I can't name a whole lot of soldiers who fought.
Yeah.
I have a hard time remembering them. It's only 2021 and already we're kind of forgetting because we're displaced from it.
Right.
We're not that close to it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just starting to become legends of old. I'm not proud to say it. It happened before I was born. I'm not proud to say I don't know the people who fought for me because they did. But I don't know them anymore. And I'm sure that the Romans, they felt the same way about the men who fought for them to expand the empire. And they went out and they died. And I'm sure their families said, we're going to remember the sacrifice that they have made for the empire. But how many modern day Italians can name one Roman soldier? They can't do it. They become legends of old.
Yeah.
We respect it and we appreciate it, but we don't know them. We're too far displaced from what happened, and so it doesn't matter how many records were broken, it doesn't matter how many wars were won, we don't remember anymore. And that's how some people treat God.
Yeah.
That's how some of us are in our relationship with God right now. He was great for our ancestors, and he was great for our grandparents, and maybe our parents even have some pretty cool stories about him. Maybe he's done a couple things for them, but as for you and God, you haven't really seen him do anything. You haven't experienced that. For you, he's just the God of old.
Yeah.
He's just an old story that you hear. He's just the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, and then the list stops there. And it didn't continue. For some of you, God is he's just a legend of old. He's just someone you hear about when pastor preaches. He's just someone you read about when you occasionally pick up the Bible. He's just someone you pray to, but it's kind of like talking to a brick wall because you're not really feeling anything back. You don't really feel a conversation taking place. You've never seen anyone be healed, and you never pray for anyone because you're not really sure if God works at this point. He doesn't seem to do a whole lot. Sure, you hear a lot about him, and apparently ancient Israel had a lot of experiences with him, and apparently he parted the Red Sea, but you've never seen anything. Because he's just old. He's just a storybook legend. And you don't know him. Sure, you feel his presence in church today, and sure, he moves powerfully, but overall, he's just a legend of old, and you're not really that close. And I'm afraid that too many people, when it comes to their relationship with God, have what I'm going to call Saul syndrome. It was incredible. Last Sunday night, this message was put on my heart. And Tuesday night, pastor is leading Bible study, and he makes this comment talking about how King Saul never called God his God. And it blew my mind. And it's not that I didn't believe pastor, I believed him. But it just blew my mind. How could he never call him his God? And I asked pastor yesterday, I said, was that in your notes or was that just an offhand comment? He said, that wasn't even in my notes. I was just an offhand comment. And it blew my mind. That Saul, the one who's anointed to be king over Israel, never refers to God as my God.
Yeah.
It's always your God. I couldn't believe it, so I had to go and read it for myself and see if it was really true. So Israel, they ask for a king like the other nation, and God, he grants their request. And so in 1 Samuel chapter 9, Saul is out and he's looking for his father's donkeys with a young servant boy. And it says, when they came to the land of Zuph, Saul said to his servant who was with him, come, let us go back, lest my father cease to care about the donkeys and become anxious about us. Saul and his servant are out, and they're looking for donkeys, and they can't find them, and Saul, he begins to get worried. We should probably turn back now. My dad's probably starting to get worried about us. And because this is the introduction to Saul, it's kind of a little bit hard to make some character judgments. And honestly, whenever I came through this the first time, it was like, well, that's kind of reasonable. It's pretty reasonable. It's not all that wrong, is it? They've passed through Ephraim, and they've passed through Shalisha, and they've passed through Shalem, and they've passed through the land of Benjamin. They have passed through 4 different land places. They've been on quite a journey, and they cannot find these donkeys. It's been a little bit of a trip. And so you can look at it, and it's really not unreasonable to say, hey, it's been a long journey, and we've been out here for a very long time. Let's turn back before Dad starts to get worried. It's not a terrible suggestion. It's not a terrible idea, but we got to remember, wait a minute. You got to remember that the narrative is right now introducing you to the man that Israel asked for.
Right.
And that man is supposed to be a king. This guy is supposed to be the king of Israel. That's who he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be the man of God that leads the nation. And so if you start to think about this, you would assume that he's supposed to have a pretty good relationship with God, would you not? You would kind of assume that this man would have confidence in God, and you would assume that him and God have been together through quite a lot of things. That he has a lot of trust in him. You would assume that. But he's saying, let's turn around. We've heard messages lately about how you are the one that God has come searching for, that you are the one that he wants to save. And we've been told about the references to God of him being a good shepherd, and he goes after the lost, and he will stop at nothing to find you. He will go through everything to seek you out. And here we have Israel's king, who's supposed to be the shepherd of the people, and he's saying, let's pack it up, boys. These donkeys just aren't worth it anymore. Let's go home. I miss my cozy bed, and Dad's going to be worried about me if I don't get a full bowl of stew in my belly tonight. But the servant said to him, behold, there is a man of God in this city, and he is a man who is held in honor. All that he says come true. So now let us go there. Perhaps he can tell us the way we should go. Wait a minute. What's going on here? Why on earth is it Saul saying, let's go home, and the servant boy saying, wait, I know a man of God?
Yeah.
This whole situation is backwards. And as we see through the rest of Saul's life, Saul, he never really has a connection with God. It's obvious as you read through the rest of 1 Samuel that Saul, he just doesn't know God. He doesn't know the rules and regulations. He is so unfamiliar with him. For Saul, this Yahweh is just somebody that his ancestors knew.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is that that's the case for some of us too. He's just a God of old. He's just a legend of old. For Saul, this guy's just an old timer. He's just somebody in the scrolls that they roll out and read a couple times a year. This guy, he doesn't have any relationship with him. He's just riding on the coattails of everybody else around him. And some of us have been doing the same thing. We've been riding on Pastor's coattails as he's led us through this time of pandemic. And we ride on the coattails of the worship team as they lead us in worship. And we just sit there and we raise our hands and it feels good. But we don't put any of the work in.
Right.
We don't really know God for ourselves.
Yeah.
For some of us, we have Saul syndrome. That's your God.
Yeah.
That's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I know a little bit about him, but I'm not very familiar with him myself. I heard some pretty cool stories about him, but personally, I've never really seen him do anything. That's your God. I heard some pretty cool stories about him, but he doesn't really seem to do those things in modern times, so what good does that do me? I'm going to make a statement, and you may not like it, but lockdown and this pandemic has actually had some benefits because it showed us our true spiritual condition. And for some of us, that's a scary place to be right now. For some of us, our spiritual condition is a terrifying place to be because Pastor, he's done the best to haul us through this time of lockdown and depression and anxiety, but Pastor's relationship with God is not your relationship with God. We've had too many self-labeled Christians get too comfortable during lockdown and get too comfortable on the couch, and they haven't been praising God at home because the worship team wasn't in their home, and they haven't been speaking in tongues because Pastor wasn't in their home giving an altar call. And maybe for some of you, you haven't even felt the presence of God in a while because you haven't been putting the work in. It's always been your God. You show up at church and that's great and all, and I thank you for being here, but he's not my God. It's just your God. Everybody else is doing all the work. Just relying on everybody else around them. And that's why I like what lockdown has done, because it showed me who I need to go after. It shows me who has Saul syndrome. It's not okay for you to just come to church and clap your hands and feel good. Yes, you may feel the presence of God, but you got to know him for yourself. He can't just be pastor's God. He can't just be the worship team's God. He's got to be your God. You've got to have an experience for yourself. You can't rely on anything else. He can't just be a legend of old. He's got to be my God. And some of you haven't made him my God because, like Saul, you're worried about what other people are going to think about you. We've got to turn around. Dad's going to be mad. We've got to turn around. It's not worth the effort. It's not worth the fight. We've come a little too far. Let's turn back now because other people are going to think of me. And I don't like the way that they're going to think of me. Come, let us go back, lest my father cease to care about the donkeys and dread about us. We've got to go back. My dad is going to be worried. Too many people, they don't come to God because of what other people are going to think about them. I can't come to God. My father's always been a Catholic. I can't come to God. My mom wouldn't be very happy about it. I can't get baptized because my aunt, twice removed on my uncle's side, believes in the Trinity. I can't get baptized. I was baptized as a baby. That's going to go against my family's tradition. They're not down for that. Too many people will not come to God because of what other people think about them. Well, think about this then for a moment. What are you going to think about yourself when your life is over and you're not going to heaven because you let the thoughts of other people get in your way? How's that going to feel then? How's it going to feel when you let Grandmammy's opinion, who's been dead in the grave for 50 years, stop you from getting eternal life? How's that going to feel? You've got to keep going, Saul. You've got to go find those donkeys. And I don't know what would happen if Saul continued to go and try and look for the donkeys. I don't know. I'm not God, but I'm pretty willing. I'm pretty confident to say I'm pretty sure he would have had an experience with God. I'm pretty sure that God would have done something for him if he kept searching. Because while Saul was running back to daddy, there was another future king of Israel that was out there looking for the sheep and getting to know God for himself. There was somebody else out there who continued to look and continued to search. Because David says, your servant has killed both lion and bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine, he's going to be like one of them. He's defying the armies of my God, the living God. And David continued to say, the Lord who delivered me, my God who delivered me from the paw of the lion. And my God who delivered me from the paw of the bear. He's going to deliver me from this Philistine. David said, I've been out looking for sheep before, and I didn't quit, and I got into some pretty dangerous situations. But I know a God who came and intervened on my behalf. And so there is nothing that can stand in my way because I have had experiences with God for myself. Get out of the way and let me go take on this big giant guy, because I know God for myself. I've had experiences with him. I have seen his deliverance. I know God for myself.
Thank you, Lord.
Fortunately for Saul, God was willing to work with him. God's willing to work with you. It's not over yet. Saul, he has several experiences with God, but the first one is in 1 Samuel chapter 10.
Yeah.
When Saul turned his back to leave Samuel, God gave him another heart. God gave him another heart. There was an experience. There was a transformation there. And all these signs came to pass that day. And when they came to Gibeah, behold, a group of prophets met him, and the Spirit of God, it rushed upon him. And he prophesied among them. This is such a powerful experience with God. His heart is completely transformed. And he goes and he prophesies with the prophets. This is undeniable. This is an undeniable experience with God. But still, he doesn't take the next step. And that's where some of us are stuck. We come into church and yeah, maybe we make the effort, and maybe we feel God and God transforms our hearts, and we go out and people can tell the difference, but we don't take the next step. God moves on us, but we don't move toward him.
Right.
God moves upon Saul so powerfully that he begins to prophesy. He begins to prophesy. God comes out to him, but Saul never returns the favor and goes to seek God. It's always God seeking him. It's always God seeking him, and it's just 5 chapters later that God's word comes to Samuel. He says, I regret this. I regret this. I'm making all the effort that I can to go to Saul, but he's not returning it. He's turned his back on me. I'm doing everything I can here to interact with this guy. My spirit has been upon him, and he's prophesied. I gave him a new heart. I did everything I possibly can, but I'm still just a legend of old. He doesn't know me. He's turned his back on me. I regret this decision. That's just 5 chapters later. That God is regretting what he has done. He's just not interested. Maybe that's where you are today. You've had a powerful experience with God. Maybe you've been even used by God like he was and prophesied. I don't know, but you just don't have a relationship with God. You've just been stagnant. I reference this verse so much when I'm preaching because it's so powerful, and honestly, it's pretty scary. Because many are going to say, didn't we prophesy in your name? Yeah, you did, Saul. Yeah, you did prophesy. But I never knew you. Yeah, you prophesied, and yeah, my spirit came upon you, and you were in church, and you felt my presence, but I didn't know you. I came to you the best that I could, but I don't know you. I tried everything I could, but I don't know you. Saul, you prophesied several times. This isn't the first time. He prophesies again later on. Saul, I moved on you, but you just didn't want me. I tried to work with you. I did everything that I could, but I'm still not your God. Church, it's not good enough to just come in here and coast. It can't be enough that your parents make you come here. And it can't be enough to always rely on someone else praying for you. You've got to know him for yourself.
Yeah.
He's got to be my God. He's got to be my God. I've got to know him for myself. I've got to experience him for myself. I'm looking for someone today who's just been coasting spiritually, who's been checked out while they've been in lockdown for a while, who's never experienced God for themselves, and even if they have, they just kind of left it in the past. It was just a story of old in their life. I'm looking for someone that you got to know God for yourself. You've been checked out for too long, and you've been relying on the prayer and the worship of others, but you got to put the effort in yourself. I want you to get it in your spirit this morning that it's not enough for me to just come in and pray, and it's not enough for me to come in here and even prophesy, but I've got to know him more. He's got to be my God. I've got to have a personal relationship with him. And I want to see his mighty hand do works. And I want to see people be healed. I've got to be the person who goes and prays for someone for healing. And I've got to be the person who knows him, who has experience with him. I can't rely on other people. I've got to do it for myself. Music, if you could come. You can't just be some legend of old.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you, Jesus.
We got to know him for ourselves.
Gotta know him.
And there's going to be opportunities for you to do that. And this morning's one of those times, but for me, whenever I was over in Sweden, I had a pillar of the church. He came over to me, Halar, and he was telling me how he had lung cancer and how he's going to go in for surgery, and his survival chances were less than 50. And for me, I grew up, and if you needed a prayer need, well, you came up to the altar and pastor prayed for you. You came up to the altar and one of the ministerial team members prayed for you. That was never my position. And he came to me telling me about his lung cancer, and I got a little scared.
Yeah.
Because I'm the only one there.
Exactly.
It's just me. And so it was a moment of, well, God, either you work or you don't.
Exactly.
Either you're real and I know you, or I'm just wasting my time. And I prayed for him. And I got the church to pray for him. And he went in for surgery. And after that surgery, he was completely cancer-free. He was completely cancer-free. It's going to be scary.
Yes.
And it's not always going to be easy. But you've got to step up and know God for yourself.
For yourself. Yes.
You can't rely on us to pray for everybody. It's too big of a job. You've got to know him for yourself. You've got to have these experiences for yourself. And it was after that experience that I was able to be like Thomas. I was able to say, you are truly my Lord,
My Lord.
my God,
Yes.
and I know you.
Yes.
God, I truly know you, and you truly exist. Jesus, he's hanging on the cross.
Jesus. Yes.
And he says, my God.
My God.
He says, my God.
Yes.
And even though it's in a time when he's asking, why have you forsaken me? It still is God.
Yes.
I know it hasn't been easy, and I know times are tough, but he's still your God.
Yes.
He's still got to be your God. You can't turn your back on him. He's still got to be your
Yes.
God. Even in the hard times, he's my God. Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. He's still my God.
Jesus. Hallelujah.
I'm going to read one last verse, and then the altars are open.
Thank you, Jesus.
If you want to come already, you can come already.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah.
My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me?
Thank you, Jesus.
It's my God. I cry by day, but you do not answer. Maybe that's where you're at this morning. You're crying and you can find no rest. And our fathers, they trusted you. And you were the God of our fathers, and they cried and they trusted. But it's you who took me from the womb. And it's you who made me trust you. On you was I cast from my birth. And from my mother's womb you've been my God.
My God.
My whole life you've been my God.
Jesus, thank you, Jesus.
God, don't be far from me. Don't be far from me.
Yes, thank you, Jesus.